Hello everyone, my name is Strife Hiraeth, and welcome back to my book reviews. Today I have for you Magician Master by Raymond Feist. It is the second book in his Riftwar saga, or if you have the original edition, still the first book, as it was split eventually into Magician Apprentice and Magician Master. If you have not viewed my first book review, Magician Apprentice, please check that out first before continuing along with this video, as there will be some slight spoilers. Starting out, this book comes in at 499 pages, so over 100 more than the first book. As I was originally reading them, I was wondering why they decided to split up the books into two instead of just leaving it as original one, and after reading the second book, I completely understand why now. The tone changes drastically between the first book and the second book. It almost seems like another author almost wrote it. Most of this book takes place on the world of Kelowon, which is where the invaders come from in the first book. We pick back up with Pug, who, slight spoiler, is not actually dead, which I assume most people thought he would not, since he seemed to be the main protagonist. You meet back up with him and finally delve a little bit more into the learning of the magic. As the book says, it's Magician Master, so you get to see his journey to mastery, which unfortunately is like the first book, and it kind of glosses over the whole training. Not the whole training, you still get a little bit at the end of his adventure. He just doesn't jump straight into the magic training, so you're still going to have to go through kind of more of what you did in the first book with him, learning and adventures and whatnot, and then you get into the magic. This book jumps around at least as much as the other one as far as perspectives go, so you won't stay with him the whole time, but you do get to spend, I think, a little bit more time with him than you did in the first book. The book really kind of time skips again, unfortunately, just like the first one did. Although I would say not quite as bad, but it's still the same where you don't get much character development between, year one and skip ahead year 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5. Everyone kind of seems static. The characters are very interesting. They're funny. You actually want to know what's going on with them. You would love to hear more of their backstory, some more character development, but you really don't get much of it. However, you do get to see war on a good scale. You do get to see, the normal action and adventure that takes place in a fantasy book. Raymond Feist has done a pretty good job actually creating a world that has interesting things happening to it. Some of the things that I've read so far I don't particularly care for, such as naming the kingdom, the magic in here. While the effects themselves are pretty good, there's no base. If you're one of those people who enjoy, learning, oh, I'm a sorcerer, I have learned my spells from my spell book, or I have learned this and I have learned that. I know it's not a sorcerer, it's a wizard who learns from the spell book, but you catch my meaning. There's no how. It's just I'm doing it and effect, which is fine because it does take a lot of work and a lot of effort developing a magic system. And since this book was written in the 80s, it's not as much emphasis was being put on the magic system as you might want to find now. But it's still, like I said, the effects are pretty good. Besides the magic, there's also a little bit of political intrigue, which I know some people should enjoy. I myself enjoy it, between the rulers of the kingdom, princes and dukes, people who want to be in charge. Normal Game of Thrones on a much smaller scale. So you have that added into along with the normal magic, mystery, wizards. So it's overall a solid fantasy book. I would suggest it, like I said in my first video, not for person just jumping into fantasy, but if you're like myself, who has quite an extended collection, then I really would suggest picking this up. I picked up Magician Master for $2.50 at my local used bookstore, so I'm sure you could find it for around that much, and it's definitely worth that to add it to your collection. Alright, Well, that does it for my review of Magician Master. My next video will be the third book in Raymond Feist series entitled Silverthorn, which more follows the tale of Prince Hiraeth than Pug. Actually, the main protagonist of the first two books isn't really in this one that much, but I actually enjoy that. Hiraeth is a little bit more of an interesting character, and the story that they tell in this one involves more of the fantasy elements that I enjoy in books. Different races, different beings, magical adventures, poison, danger, things a little bit more than warmth, a little intrigue, a little bit of magic thrown in. So, I hope you enjoyed my video. I'm sorry that it took a little bit longer to get out than I had hoped, but I have dedicated myself to doing more of this, and you should see the next book review coming out pretty soon. Until then, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.